Year's Eve 2025, last day of 2025. And well, I'm kind of glad to see the end of 2025 as much as we don't have the COVID nonsense happening. We had Carney doing nothing all year. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Rampant fraud, rampant taxpayer abuse, rampant invasion. Trump seems to have... He spent the year moving pieces. He spent the year setting up his chessboard, and we're going to talk about Trump at the end of the show, I think, today. There are interesting communications that are going on with regards to move at my signal type deal and all sorts of other stuff. So we'll look at that at the end of the show as well. Satanism. Bukele, in an interview with Tucker Carlson, talks about Satanism in El Salvador, and his ability to defeat it was easy because they had no competition because the other side were Satanists. So that's interesting stuff. The Iran uprising, we've got to talk about that. Alberta is facing pushback, and lots to get to. Fraud in Minnesota and Washington and all other sorts of places. Lots to get to. Let's get to it first. Beaver says nearly $1 trillion in government funding between just Minnesota, Ohio, and Washington. And that's just the data I have so far. I estimate $15 trillion in fraud yesterday. I'm starting to think this is more. I'm starting to think it's more downloadable spreadsheets at the bottom of the page. And I've got what are they called? I can't remember who made it, but we'll get there in a few minutes. Searchable database of the Canadian government spending. So if you're interested in daycares or bakeries or anything like that, you can search and find out how much money the government of Canada is giving to these businesses. Unbelievable stuff. So lots of people are interested in finding this fraud. Lots of people are collating data and saying, like, here's a website to search, and if you're interested, have a look. J.D. Vance is responding to the HHS Gym, the Homeland or Health and Human Services, and they are announcing that they say that we've frozen all childcare payments to the state of Minnesota. You've probably read the serious allegations that the state of Minnesota has funneled millions of taxpayer dollars to fraudulent daycares across Minnesota over the past decade. Today, we have taken the 3 actions against the blatant fraud that appears to be rampant in Minnesota and across the country. 1, have activated our Defend the Spend system for all ACF payments. Starting today, all ACF payments across America will require a justification and a receipt or photo evidence before we send money to a state. Alex Adams and I have identified the individuals in Nick Shirley's excellent work. I have demanded from Governor Tim Walz a comprehensive audit of these centers. This includes attendance records, licenses, complaints, investigations, and inspections. 3, we have launched a dedicated fraud reporting hotline and email address at childcare.gov, whether you are a parent, a provider, or a member of the general public, we want to hear from you. We have turned off the money spigot, and we are finding the fraud. Fingers crossed. I'll show you that the FBI raided one of the daycares in 2018, I think, 2015 or 2018, and, well, nothing happened. So fingers crossed. J.D. Vance says turning off payment and forcing verification before taxpayer money flows out the door is one of the most important steps we can take to end the fraud in Minnesota, but there will be many more to come. Great job, HHS. Jim and Secretary Kennedy. So there you go. Awakened Outlaw says this is an interesting move, the cutting off payments. Think about the pickle it puts the hoaxers in. Granted, it's a pain for legal participants, but those running BS operations, they're left with an interesting and legit crappy dilemma. Reapply, knowing your outfit was a legit criminal outfit, would put a huge target on your back, especially as you'd have just committed additional crimes. Or you could choose the alternative path where you just close up shop and virtually admit you were running for a fraudulent operation. Good times for us, that is, not for them so much. Right? Yep. So it'll be interesting. We'll see. We'll see if it all comes to fruition. If these fraudsters are cut off. Well, here's somebody was saying on X this morning, if the fraudsters get caught, they cut their losses and go home. If you and I commit fraud in Canada, let's say, or somebody in Ohio or Minnesota or wherever commits fraud there, they can't run to Somalia, right? Or they wouldn't want to. American jail or Somalia, which one do you choose? Right? So the fraud doesn't have the same incentive structure for you and me. It doesn't pay for us to commit fraud, but it pays for them to commit fraud because it's a zero-sum game. They're not going to be held accountable, and they know it. They'll just go home. So having committed a bunch of fraud, and look how well it works. Works a treat, right? Mike says a single Minneapolis restaurant exposes the scale of Minnesota's fraud scandal. Minneapolis restaurant with 35 seats claimed it was serving 18,000 meals a day to hungry children, and the federal government paid for every single one. This is just one piece of what's now being described as a $9 billion Medicare fraud operation, the largest in U.S. history. Investigations incoming, whistleblowers ignored, cover-ups exposed. Maybe we'll see. Fingers crossed. I hope so. But I wouldn't hold my breath. Bad Hombre says, did I call it or did I call it? He's responding to himself when on December 29th, which is 2 days ago, he said, within the next 72 hours, expect a Jussie Smollett hoax-style fake bomb threat against the Somali Learning Center, that Democrats will try to blame on MAGA right-wingers on X. They desperately want to distract in any way that they can from the fraud. And so here is Bad Hombre a couple of days later saying, did I call it or what? Police investigating overnight burglary of Somali daycare in South Minneapolis. The break-in comes in the aftermath of a viral video alleging fraud by several Somali childcare centers. So yes, those evil MAGAs are breaking into Somali childcare centers, those sweet, innocent Somalis, and the evil MAGAs are looking for evidence of fraud, right? How dare they? The framing is obvious and dangerous. Like this is how they combat everything. They get caught with red-handed, with their hand in the cookie jar, and they say, it was you who did that. It was you. Oh, nope. You got caught. Attorney General Nick Brown says, my office has received outreach from members of the Somali community after reports of home-based daycare providers being harassed and accused of fraud with little to no fact-checking. We are in touch with the State Department of Children, Youth, and Families regarding the claims being pushed online and the harassment reported by daycare providers. Showing up on someone's porch, threatening or harassing them isn't an investigation. Neither is filming minors who may be in the home. This is unsafe and potentially dangerous behavior. I encourage anyone experiencing threats or harassment to either contact local law enforcement or our office's hate crimes and bias incident hotline. Hate crimes and bias incident at the Attorney General. If you think fraud is happening, there are appropriate measures to report and investigate. Go to the website to learn more. Well, you don't get to police how people do journalism. Here is a guy, and he goes to this daycare, and it's in Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, and he does this. He looks, he says, I'm here at 5 o'clock. I'm going to knock on the door to see if there's any kids here and see if anybody opens. Somebody peeked, right? Somebody had a look. You could see right around here, they're peeking right there. I missed it. Yeah, right there. They're looking. So there's somebody in there, and then he goes to sit in his car, and then people come out and accost him, and they say, I know who you are. I know who you are. You're a terrorist. So he's just trying to see, are there kids here? So we'll watch the last minute or so here.
Hey man, is this a child care center? Hey, is this a child care center?
Why are you recording?
I'm asking a question. Is this a child care center?
Why are you recording?
Is this a child care center?
No.
It's not.
Stop recording.
It's not our child. Why can't I record?
Stop recording. You're resisting. Why are you recording?
Because I'm curious if this is a child care center.
Where are you from?
I'm from Ohio.
No. Who's into you?
Me. I'm an independent person. I own my own company.
So you are a YouTuber, so you need the social media.
I mean, I represent myself.
We have just reported you to the police, okay?
Okay, that's fine. I'm not breaking any laws.
You are resisting.
I'm not.
Huh?
I'm just asking, is this a child care center?
I know who you are.
Okay, is this a child care center?
You are terrorist.
I'm a what?
Yeah. No.
I'm a what? Did you say I'm a terrorist?
You are resisting. I know who you are, fucking guy.
You said I'm fucking gay, I guess? Is that what you just said? No, it was a challenge. Effing guy, right? It was a challenge. It was a challenge to a fight. So very interesting. This is the kind of stuff the Attorney General is saying, don't you dare harass these people. And the people are claiming victimhood right away, right? Man, almost like they've been coached or something like that. Almost like that's a thing that people do, claim victimhood when they're the ones being the aggressor. Here is Nick Shirley, the original guy who broke this story, and he calls out conflicting and inconsistent stories. So the Leering Center was closed down, but now they're operating again, and Nick Shirley's there, and he's like, what's going on here? This is fraud.
Department of Children, a lady, the commissioner, Kiki Brown said you guys were closed a week ago, and now you guys are open right now. This is not true what you guys are saying.
I don't have anything to
Ma'am,
do with
this
that
is
business.
fraud.
I don't have
I have a
anything to do
question.
with that
Who
business.
the hell are you?
What you got on?
Oh,
My God. You're the infamous Nick Shirley who's getting dollars off of YouTube.
I have a question. If
Right.
someone can answer.
Oh, hey, brother.
This,
all right, let's move up to don't say something
this
that
facility is licensed
Oh,
for
it is
99
going to make
children.
sense.
It's kind of muddy after that. There people are jockeying for position and trying to ask him a question. He's not really answering. Here he's talking about there are bounties on him, and so bolos and other kinds of death threats and things like that. Eric says, "Holy smoke!" Nick Shirley says there are bounties on him in Minnesota because he exposed Somali fraud and got 120 million views. He can't move around freely now. People are upset. They know their time's up. I can't reveal too much. He said, "There's part 2 coming." He said, so that's interesting. Here's Nick Shirley talking to Don Jr.
They're so mad. The Somalians are so mad because can you imagine? For years you're at the dinner table talking with your family about how everything's good. Oh, we don't need to worry because the government and whatnot. I mean, 81% of these people are on welfare, but on top of that, they're collecting millions of dollars for these companies. Tax exempt, by the way, especially the daycares. So can you imagine how mad they are now? Like that's why they're right now. There's like people are so upset. Like there's like bounties on me here in Minnesota because people are so upset as far as the fraud that's being exposed because they know their time's up and they know everyone's just sick and tired of this happening inside their own state and across America.
What have some of those threats been?
Yeah, there was apparently like a bolo that they used. That's the word that some people told me was on me, and I can't reveal too much just because I don't want to reveal. But like, yeah, lots of messages, death threats, obviously on social media, and then it's just not the most safe thing for me to be moving around freely right now.
I think that's fair. I mean,
pretty crazy stuff, right? And so if you expose the fraud, it's not the fraudsters who need to worry. It is the people who are exposing the fraud. They're going to get done by the Attorney General for harassing those nice Somalians. Okay. Libs of TikTok says, what? Former TSA agent says she saw Somali men flying out of Minnesota with suitcases filled with cash. $1 billion over 5 years. They also once had a suitcase filled with brand new passports. They were always waved through security. There's a trail, Secretary Duffy. And so this is 5 minutes long. We're not going to watch it. 6 minutes long, actually. We're not going to watch it right now, but pretty crazy stuff. Pretty wild. Here is Tom Hennessy. He says, here's the FBI and Department of Homeland Security raiding the same address for Somali daycare found 10 years ago. Yeah, 2015. I said 2018. I thought maybe 2015. 2015. Investigators haul away computers, boxes, documents from Salma Childcare Center. Salama. So there you go. Fraud everywhere. Does anybody do anything? No, not at all. Eric says, if I'm racist for wanting to arrest Somali fraudsters and Democrats who enable them, guess I'm racist. If I'm xenophobic for wanting it, guess I'm xenophobic. If I'm Islamophobic for wanting it, I guess I'm Islamophobic. If I'm far right for wanting it, I guess I'm far right. There's nothing any leftist can say that will change our position on this. We are done. They're going to try and make it illegal to be hateful. It's not illegal to say mean things. It's not illegal to say hateful things. It's not illegal to say most things unless you cross a line of saying we should all go hurt that guy there or that gal there, whatever it is, right? As soon as you start inciting violence, there's a criminal code thing for that. So that's speech that's not allowed. But you're allowed to say, like, I hate broccoli. Oh, I hate broccoli so much. And I'm talking, of course, of the vegetable, broccoli. Just as an example, you're allowed to hate broccoli. The government can't legislate your feelings. I've got a history with broccoli. Broccoli knows what it did. So I hate broccoli. And so the government can't tell me not to hate broccoli. That is well outside of the government mandate and absolutely not something that I would listen to anyway. If the government came to me and said, you're not allowed to hate broccoli, I would say F off. And if they said, you're not allowed to hate this person here or this group of people here, I would say I'm allowed to do whatever my body and brain tell me I'm allowed to do because you don't have control of that and neither do I. So if I've got my reasons for hating that guy or that group or whatever, if I'm O'Brien and I hate Cardassians, damn Cardis, that's my business and not yours, the government. Now, if I start bombing people, that's different, right? But there's a criminal code thing for that. I'm allowed to say what I want to say. And so it's very, very interesting that they're trying to make it illegal, right? Islamophobia is a hate against Islam. They're trying to make it illegal. anti-Semitism is, quote, hate against Jews, but they're trying to make it illegal. And they're trying to say we're protecting you by making this illegal, but they're not. What they do is they invert the problem. If you say the problem is this call to prayer at 5 o'clock in the morning keeps waking me up and I don't appreciate that, and we don't do that here because we're not an Islamic nation or we're not a Muslim country or whatever thing you want to say, and then they say that's quite Islamophobic of you. Now the issue is not the complaint you're making. We're not looking at solving the problem. Now the problem is you and your complaint, because that's Islamophobic. This is not about hate. This is about inverting the problem and blaming you or me or anybody with a problem and protecting a group from any kind of criticism. And that's wrong. We shouldn't do that. So if it's far right, fine, so be it. But we need to be in a situation where they're not able to make it illegal to be far right, right? If they say you're far right and you say, shove it up your butt, man, I don't care what you say. And then they say it's illegal to be far right, you're going to jail. That's different. Right. And so they're going to try and make it illegal. They're going to try and make it so that Karen on the plane that doesn't want you wearing your MAGA hat or whatever it is and gets upset because you look like you might be MAGA, or she's being triggered by you for whatever reason, they want to give her all the power to say, this person needs to be moved. They can't be close to me. And then you'll get kicked off the plane, maybe, rebooked at another later date or something like that. And that's the world they wanted to build. They're still trying to build that world. Back to the fraud. Somali fraud in Washington. This person and I spent yesterday investigating Somali daycares in Washington. Dalgash Childcare has received $210,000 just this year. People living at the address claim that there's never been a daycare there. We lay out the facts in this teaser. So are they using just random addresses to claim a daycare is there, and they get government money and that's it? Holy cow. Way easier than I thought to be a Somali daycare millionaire. Election Wizard says, in Columbus, Ohio, there was a street ceremonially named Savid Mohammed Abdullah Hussein Lane. That person was a Somali warlord who waged a brutal 20-year jihad against the British and the Italians. It's like Jinnah Park. Jinnah created Pakistan through a bombing, I think it was Pakistan, through a bombing campaign. And so we have a park in Winnipeg named after that guy. And I did an expose on it years ago. Nobody cares. So, oh well. Eagle Wings says, what the heck? It's just been exposed that Minnesota's AG, Keith Ellison's son, has been collecting $110,000 salary and $57,000 in living expenses, stipend from the Minneapolis City Council while attending Harvard. And I said that it was a U.S. outlet. And here is the report, just in case.
Their years of service.
So I give my gratitude to the North Side.
But one issue not mentioned, where he's been the final 5 months of his term. Harvard University as a Loeb Fellow. R.J. Coles first broke this story this summer, and it caught some off guard.
His Ward 5 constituents deserve a council member who shows up.
Ellison is splitting his time between here and Cambridge, Massachusetts. He's still earning his $110,000 city salary on top of a $57,000 stipend from Harvard.
If you could do that for your kids, wouldn't you? I mean, not if I'm committing fraud. Why aren't they being arrested? Wall Street Ape says Hamtramck City Council meeting in Michigan voted to allow Muslim residents to perform religious animal sacrifices at home for Islamic rituals. Non-Muslim residents showed up to oppose it, but it passed anyway. The all-Muslim City Council voted to amend the ordinance and explicitly allow religious animal sacrifices on residential property. This isn't happening in the Middle East. This is happening in America. The decision was praised by groups like CARE Michigan for protecting religious beliefs or religious rights, but criticized by animal welfare advocates. So PETA is coming out against this, but ostriches who? I haven't heard about the ostriches. What? Stacy is highlighting this. In Canada, here's some fraud. There's no fraud happening in the Canadian taxpayer-funded government programs, you MAGA or Maple MAGA hillbilly. But the reality is, Cabinet faked success. This is a Blacklock's report, I think. It says a federal subsidy program that gave away more than $130 million on a promise of promoting business startups and creating jobs achieved neither. No fund recipients reported using funds for startups, even though not funded for this purpose, said the report. No new businesses were funded. So there was a whole bunch of fake money distributed to who? Probably insiders, $130 million worth. What are you going to do? Table Salt says, look at this, a $75,000 Lexus showing up at the Brampton Food Bank. You don't know their situation. Yes, I do. They're driving a $75,000 car and getting charity food. So I know their situation. We shouldn't be subsidizing their car payments with a food bank. Sorry, if you can't afford that car, you should absolutely sell it and get a clunker and put that other money into food, right? The Reclaimer is highlighting, he says, let the light shine. He says, I've created a searchable web page of all published Canadian government spending from 2015 to 2025. The Canadian government publishes this information online as part of public accounts, except the government publishes the public accounts as PDF or HTML, making it virtually impossible to search and figure things out. Each payment entry is listed in its ministry, and it's impossible to search and tabulate all of the payments made to a recipient across different ministries. I argue they do it on purpose. They do. As well, the government publishes different accounting books, which may have payments to the same recipients in multiple books, making it even more difficult to track. So I downloaded the 10 years, 2015 to 2025, of each accounting book as a CSV file, and made a searchable web page with lots of ways to search. As a landing page, I merged all of the payments so it shows the total money that went to recipients over the 10 years, $1.4 trillion in federal spending, one searchable list. You can search by name and as a summary page. So there's the link, and the link is also on CanadaReport.co. Up at the top, it says searchable database. If you want to search for a specific category or book, such as land, building, and works, I merged all the payments with each book over 10 years in one page to see the cumulative total of who received what, all searchable by name. And so there's the link again. If you want to get more specific, I merged payments to each recipient by year in each category, all searchable by name. If you want the raw data, I've also published this as well. So he says, I hope this helps people who want to know where their taxes are being spent and find corruption within the government. So that's great. It's a good tool. And here are some. Here it is, and you can kind of scroll. Payments under 100,000, province of Ontario, province of Quebec, province of Alberta, so on and so forth. Medical, Medivale Blue Cross, City of Ottawa, Canadian Foundation for Innovation, and it shows how much is spent, total cash received. So City of Ottawa got $3 billion, right? Almost $3.5 billion. So that's wild. Canada Foundation for Innovation got the same. So, my gosh, are these job programs? What are these? So pretty concerning. Wealth Moose says, taxpayer alert, since 2013, the Canadian government has awarded 613 contracts worth $16.2 billion to Brookfield Global Integrated Solutions, BGIS, to manage federal properties. The breakdown is $5.7 billion, National Capital Region, 2.5 billion in Ontario. Other regions add billions more. Recent annual spend of 1.1 to 1.3 billion every year. Now the optics. Former Brookfield chair Mark Carney is prime minister with assets in a blind trust. Efficiency or insider enrichment follow the money. We shouldn't have a situation where the prime minister is directly creating policies that enrich his business and himself. That's an intolerable conflict of interest. Lazi says, in Australia, we have our own Muslim childcare fraud going on. Billions of our taxpayer money have been funneled to these fake childcare centers. This is only the tip of the iceberg. 100 Sydney childcare centers are scamming $750 million. Yep. I'm shocked. But as we uncover the fraud, it doesn't seem like anybody's doing anything. Like 2015, FBI and Department of Homeland Security were raiding Somali daycares. By 2025, we're like, Somali daycares? What? 10 years is too long to not know about that. How many? The full scale of the amount of money gone is just staggering. It's unbelievable. Let's talk about free speech very quickly. And we talked about free speech very briefly. If you create a situation where if you say something that might be construed as, quote, anti-Semitic or Islamophobic, that becomes the problem rather than the criticism you were trying to address. And in doing that, it neuters your ability to address problems and solve situations. And instead, you become a problem, and then maybe they throw you in jail, right? Like maybe they say, well, that's anti-Semitic of you, and now it's illegal to be anti-Semitic of you, and well, you're going to jail for 6 months for your anti-Semitism because you're anti-Semitic. And it's like, well, hold on a second. This practice is something that we as a culture didn't do until blah. For example, same thing, the calls to prayer, right? We don't do that here. So we have to have a conversation. That's Islamophobic of you. Shuts it down. Same thing. So the general, there's a lot of duality with this Trump administration. Sometimes I think Marco Rubio is great. And other times I think, oh my gosh, this is terrible. This is the terrible Marco Rubio. We've got a great Marco Rubio coming up. So it's frustrating. But terrible Marco Rubio. The general says, Marco Rubio says he spoke with Benjamin Netanyahu about anti-Semitism and the United States, and they plan to combat it together. Oh, man. Where's my losing horn, right? There it is. Oof. Like, that's not what I want Marco Rubio to be focusing on. Let's crush anti-Semitism. How about we reaffirm free speech? How about that? Sticks and stones may break your bones, but let's talk about the actual criticism and not claim victimhood and invert it. Okay, I think that's the rhyme. Harris says the UK-style knocks on the door have started in Australia. And this guy is great. This is what you say when the police show up at your door. Am I under arrest? Then get nodded. Leave. See you later. I'm not talking to you. Bye.
Somebody knocking loud on the door. Who's that? Who's that?
Just the police, mate. How you going?
Good. What's your problem?
Oh, I don't have a problem. I just want to speak to Michael. Is that you?
Yeah, why?
I just want to come and speak to you about a few things it's come to our attention that may have been posted on social media.
I really don't care. I've got the right to freedom of speech. You can bugger off.
Absolutely. All right.
Okay, see ya.
Okay, mate.
I have a right to freedom of speech. You can bugger off. Yep. Sounds good. Dad from Bluey has it right. Christina says, as crime continues, let's do our grab bag of governance. I have things to do this morning, so I don't have time to do post-production today. I don't have time to cut the show or anything like that, so I'm just going to do the whole show. So yay, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Anyway, we'll carry on. Grab bag of governance coming. As crime, this is an elected MLA in British Columbia, and she said she is MLA for Kelowna Centre, critic for social development and poverty reduction. I asked her honest questions. Do you know that communism doesn't work? Do you support sending tax dollars to foreign countries for their wars? And what is a woman? And to her credit, she responded. She says, amen, that communism doesn't work. No to supporting tax dollars to foreign wars. And I asked, what is a woman? And she said, I am. So, okay, fair. She's asking for people to bring stories of crime to her and report them. She says, as crime continues to escalate, business owners have had enough in downtown Kelowna. I'm encouraged to see so much discussion on social media and now more media coverage. If you have a story, please contact me at email address there. Kelowna businesses continue to struggle with runaway crime. Global News, December 30th, 2025. And when you have a situation like that businesses are struggling with runaway crime and struggling to a business is just like, I am able to make this widget for $3 and sell it to you for $6, making 100% profit there. And that's good. But if all of a sudden you don't buy it, then the business isn't viable, right? If all of a sudden it's too crime ridden for you to come down and buy my ice cream that I mark up, right? Then I don't make any money, right? And so that's a problem. And the politician's job is to facilitate people's ability to freely trade, right? To be able to get to the store. So they have to build streets and things like that. That's what our taxes go to. But again, I think that we should probably be reducing the amount of taxes we pay to the politicians because it's clear they either can't manage it or are stealing it all. But I digress. There's an agreement. The state is supposed to meet certain obligations, and the obligations are to facilitate people trading freely, doing business freely in a way that is unencumbered by ridiculousness and bad practices on the business side or the customer side, really, right? Because you don't want fraud. Here's Mark Carney, moving on a little bit. Adrian says, Mark Carney and his motorcade were on my street in North Nanaimo yesterday. Very surprising. And Donald says, what's the address he was at? And 6374 Icarus Drive. And I said to Andy Lee, hey, Andy Lee, are there any Somali daycares at this address people are interested in knowing? And she liked the status. So I don't know. She's going to look into it. I'm pretty sure she's going to look into it. So I'll wait for that report. I'll let you know. Here is Donald Trump. Here is Mark Carney, and he's just putting out absolute nonsense. And there's like the song. I don't like the song. I'm going to mute the song because I don't like the song. But he's got this video. It's 24 seconds long. And on the video, it has the accomplishments that Mark Carney is claiming for 2025, and it's bullshit. So here's the video. I'm going to read out the accomplishments that it says. Okay, it says 2025 was a year of cutting your taxes by $11. Building more affordable homes. No, it wasn't. It was putting up bullshit. Like, they didn't actually build more affordable homes. They didn't build any homes over top of what was projected to be built and what we usually build. Diversifying our trade partnerships. He didn't get a trade deal with Donald Trump. Diversifying our trade partnership. Fast tracking major projects. Which ones? Making our streets safer. Nope. Supporting Canadian workers. Nope. Investing in the Canadian Armed Forces. I'm skeptical of that one because it seems like they're trying to pay people off to go die in a trench in Russia. Attracting massive investment. Nope. I don't know. Not compared to Donald Trump. Building one Canadian economy. Nope. And empowering Canadians to build Canada strong. None of that is true. I don't think any of that's true. Like, not even close, really. Melissa says, Mark Carney just released his video saying that 2025 was a year of building affordable homes, yet his multi-billion-dollar agency has built exactly 0 homes. Another lie, because he's a liar. And here is Mark Nixon, and he's fixed Mark Carney's video. And again, I'm going to mute the audio, it's not offensive. It's just really distracting when I'm trying to read the words. Okay, here is Mark Nixon's version of Mark Carney's video. 25 was a year of cutting your taxes. He's got the $11. 0 homes delivered. 0 trade deals. Yep, which is what I said. 1 office opened. Bureaucracy. Crime at record levels. Thousands of jobs lost. Yeah. Tampons and male washrooms still required. Record investment left Canada. 13 economy. Yeah, the one Canada economy. It's not one Canada economy. We have a lot of barriers to interprovincial trade, and nobody's talking about that. Destroying Canadians. Canada's fallen. Yep. There's a lot of valid criticisms in that video, if you ask me. David says adding millions of new immigrants and their ailing parents was the last nail in the coffin. Corey Morgan says when healthcare access is a problem in all 10 provinces, despite decades of spending increases, it's time to face reality. Canada's system doesn't work. Yep. And nobody wants to admit it. There's no political will to do anything meaningful about the Canadian healthcare that keeps killing 45-year-olds and teenagers in the emergency room. So nobody wants to do a damn thing about it. Bradshaw's responding to this Toronto Sun article. The CRA is attempting to recover $10 billion in bogus COVID benefit payouts. I didn't take any money during COVID, thank goodness, but people who needed EI and would previously have qualified for EI were forced onto curb payments instead during COVID. And now they're trying to get those payments back. And I know people who are seasonal workers and who have worked in a situation where they usually take EI during a certain period of time. And this fell during the same time that curb was being put out, because curb was being put out for almost a year, I think. And so they weren't able to get on EI, even though they requested, I don't want curb, I just want to go on EI like normal. Everything was forced into that one thing. And now they're trying to say $10 billion in bogus COVID payments. How did bureaucracy fail so badly that they spent $10 billion of money to bogus COVID payments? How does that work? That's incompetent. Imagine that you make a mistake at work. You send all the orders from yesterday for free. Every single order from yesterday, all free. Why? Because you pushed the wrong button. Whoops, sorry everybody. Right? So what happens then? You've messed up. $10 billion. That's a little tiny, that's maybe $10,000 a day, maybe $15,000 a day. That's an oops, right? Oh gosh, darn, that's terrible. Right? But $10 billion. Anybody been fired? Yeah, I don't think so, man. $10 billion. And it's your fault, citizen, for you taking it. How dare you? The food professor says, today, Rabobank warns of abundant global milk supply in 2025. Can we have a cheaper 4 liters? And Newfoundland needs cheaper milk. Holy smoke. Anyway, pushing dairy and farm gate prices well down into down well into 2026. Most of the world will see cheaper milk. Canada, meanwhile, will do what it does best, use supply management to make milk more expensive. I think the more global milk gets, the less, not value, because milk has a lot of value as it is now, but having a local farmer, my grandparents, when I visited my grandparents, they were still getting deliveries from wherever the deliveries were from. I don't know if it was from a farm. I was too young to really pay any attention. But it came with a little foil thing on the top, but it was dropped off outside their door every morning, and you'd go out and you'd get the milk. Genuine. And like, I was, I don't know, 8 years old or something like that. And they were still getting their deliveries of milk to their door. And they didn't go to the grocery store to get the milk. And I think that's probably a better system than the one we've got now. Anyway, we have expensive milk because of greedy quota owners. I don't know about farmers. I don't want to vilify farmers, but the dairy farmers in Canada are a little bit different because they own quota, and that quota has value independent of the milk it produces. It has value into the future, right? They want to take that quota and pass it down to their kids. And if you threaten that quota, they will attack you in any way possible. And I know this because I was a PPC candidate in 2019, and I said we should do away with supply management like Australia did, like Australia and New Zealand did in the early 2000s, 1996 to 2002, I think. It was a 7-year unwind. And most of that unwind was to pay off the quota holders, honestly. And so they don't want to do that, though. The quota holders in Canada, they don't want to remove their valuable asset. And so we sit locked, held hostage by the dairy cartel. CTV Saskatoon says Saskatoon police are rolling out mandatory breathalyzer tests at traffic stops in 2026. So that it was ruled unconstitutional, or there was something, they tried to do this in Ontario, and it got stopped because an Ontario court or some court said you can't do that because it assumes guilt where there's no reason to assume guilt at every traffic stop for drinking. And so it was stopped. I don't know how they're going to do that. So we'll see, I guess. We'll see. Here is Goldie, and Goldie says, pray for Iran. And she says, Iranians are trying to overthrow the terrorist Islamic dictatorship that's been occupying Iran for 46 years. The Islamic terrorists are responding with violence. The situation is very bad. Yes. And here is a little bit more. Sheer says, December 30th, Hamadan, Iran, protests of young people who are fed up with oppression, high prices, poverty, and unemployment in solidarity with the uprising in Tehran Bazaar with the slogan, death to the dictator. So Iranians are rising up. And that's the same one. Here is Marco Rubio, and he's talking about the difference between the Iranian citizens and the Iranian regime. Here we go.
So Iran
today, this is the good Marco Rubio that I was referring to earlier.
So Iran today, 2 points I want to make about Iran, and it's really important. When we talk about Iran, I'm talking about the radical Shia clerics and not the people. The people of Iran are people of an ancient civilization, an ancient culture with tremendous pride and advances. And I don't know who take great pride in their Persian heritage and identity. And I don't know of any nation on earth in which there is a bigger difference between the people and those who govern them than what exists in Iran. And that's a fact that needs to be made repeatedly. In no way is the clerics who run that country representative of the people of that country and of its history and of contributions it's made to humanity. And it's a point I wish we would continue to make. So Iran.
So there you go. Marco Rubio saying the people of Iran are oppressed by this terrible regime, blah, 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 blah. And so how we'll see. I mean, I often say that it's not our responsibility in the West to go in the West. It's not Canada's responsibility. It's not the United States' responsibility to go and free a people, because the people have to free themselves. Otherwise, it's not freedom. You're trading one ideology or one dictator for another dictator. If the United States comes in, they'll do what they do and bring in their NGOs and bring in their freedom, right? Look at how well that happened in the Middle East. And look at the results, right? So you can't just hand freedom, quote, freedom over to another country. They have to do it themselves. And so it's interesting to watch. We'll see. Do you think that they will be successful? I don't know. Hopefully, I guess. The regime that's been in charge has been in charge my entire life. So I know nothing different, right? I think it was the 70s when the switchover happened, right? And so the whole thing has been just this way for my entire life. But I'm sure that there's a different configuration diplomatically, right? I'm sure that things could change, if only, right? And if only is happening right now. So that's interesting. Lewis says Iranians are revolting right now against the Islamic Republic. I hope it works. Like, fingers crossed. I don't know, right? It's their responsibility. Yes, it's their responsibility. But after they remove the mullahs, and after they assert themselves and establish themselves, and after countries recognize them, then what happens? That'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. Here's just a little bit of what's going on in Tehran. So people will live under the boot heel of a dictator for a while, but not forever. And so these people who are trying to do this, it's bad. Like, we're in a bad way in Canada right now. It's bad, but it's not going to last forever. People will stand up. People will say no. People will say this ends now and your government's done. That's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. Because the people who are in charge of us right now, they don't work for us. They don't. Just like the people of Tehran don't feel represented by their government because the people of their government don't work for them. Fundamentally, they don't. Same situation. It's just a matter of time. And overreach. The government of Canada is trying to balance their dictatorship tendencies with keeping Canadians docile, right? And so the more they tighten, the more they say your speech is under attack and so on and so forth, all these rules and laws that are coming down, the more they do that, the more they'll show their true colors and their dictatorship tendencies, et cetera, in my opinion. This person says, watch how unarmed people force security guards to run, or forces to run away. These moments will be remembered as powerful scenes from the Iranian people's uprising against a corrupt and incompetent regime. Security forces thought they were clearing the main street near the bazaar and breaking up the crowd, but the courage of a few people quickly changed the situation. The people took back the street. Standing together, they forced the security forces to flee. So the security forces are here and they're trying to put up barriers, and the people realize what's going on, and then they fled the street. They say, no, that's not going to happen. Sorry, we're not going to, these barriers are bullshit. We're walking on the street. And the security forces walk away. So the people hold the power. There's a lot more of them than the security forces, and the security forces can't deal with it. This guy says the dawn is breaking in Persia right now as we move into 2026. I think he means the streets of Iran are witnessing a final battle moment. This isn't just about inflation or the currency hitting historic lows. It's about the unbreakable spirit of a people who have reached the point of nothing to lose. What you need to know: in the last 24 hours, the bazaar has spoken. The Grand Bazaar and tech hubs are shut down. When the merchants strike, the regime's foundation cracks. A new unity for the first time in decades. The calls for the return of the monarchy, Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, are echoing nationwide. This is no longer just a social movement. It's a national identity reclaiming itself. Iran first. The people are rejecting proxy wars. The chants Palestine and Gaza both should die for Iran sent a clear message: take care of our people first. Unmatched bravery, from girls risking everything on the front lines to symbolic acts of defiance in the face of tear gas. The women life freedom spark has turned into a wildfire. As a physician, I see the pulse of a nation. It's fast, it is strong, it is demanding to live. History is being written in real time. We cannot be silent. We are the digital bridge for those whose voices are being throttled by censorship. So maybe. I try and report just to inform people of what's going on. I think it's important for people to know what's going on. Bruce Party, let's talk about Alberta. Maybe Alberta should have been before the Iran stuff. But I think the Iran stuff's interesting because I feel like it is analogous of other long-standing, well-entrenched dictatorships losing power. Maybe not quite yet, right? They're not deposed yet. They still have shreds of power here and there, but it's cracking, it's falling. Maybe. Fingers crossed. In Alberta, Bruce Party says the referendum goose could still be cooked. For Alberta separatists, the Alberta government has fixed a problem and created a new one. If Albertans vote to leave Canada, the government now has the power to refuse. What have I been saying for the last year? I was right all along. Called it. In an October column for the Western Standard, Bruce Party argued the government repeal Section 2.4 of the Citizen Initiative Act. That section prohibited Albertans from proposing a referendum on independence. It tied up the Alberta Prosperity Project's proposed question in the courts. On December 10th, the Alberta legislature passed Bill 14, which repealed Section 2.4. Credit to the UCP government where credit is due. Full steam ahead on collecting signatures for the proposed vote. It will be held hopefully in late 26. But in the same bill, the government gave itself a new power. If the people vote yes in an independence referendum, the government can now decide not to implement the results. It doesn't say so in those words, but that's what this new section means. Bear with me. Section 2.4 said that a referendum proposal must not contravene Section 1 to 35(1) of the Constitution Act 1982. Section 1 to 34 are the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Section 35 and 35(1) relate to Aboriginal rights. A referendum question contravenes the Charter and Aboriginal rights when it proposes to do away with them. That's what an an independence referendum would do. To become independent means to leave your country and its constitution behind. Independence entails clear repudiation of the existing constitutional order. So said the Supreme Court of Canada in its 1998 reference case decision about Quebec. The Charter applies to Canada and its provinces, and independent Alberta would not be a province. The Charter in Section 35 would not apply. In effect, the CIA forbade an independence referendum. As some of us expected, Justice Feebly of the Alberta King's Bench confirmed that. He released his judgment on the APP question the day after the government introduced Bill 14. It said that the APP's referendum proposal contravenes Section 1 to 35.1. Independence would require the replacement of the Canadian Constitution, including the identified sections with a new Alberta Constitution. Did not give citizens the power to initiate a referendum on the question of independence from Canada. This was a made in Alberta obstacle. The federal government didn't cause it. The Federal Clarity Act didn't create it. It was not because of the Supreme Court of Canada's reference case about Quebec. The question was not whether Alberta can hold independence referendum. It can. The issue was not whether holding an independence referendum is constitutional. It is. The Alberta court was not meddling in the process, as some have suggested. Justice Feebly was doing the job that the statute assigned. Alberta's own law was the problem. So thanks to Bill 14, the CIA no longer forbids proposing a referendum on independence, but the problem has not gone away. Instead, the government has given it a different form. Bill 14 has moved it from the beginning to the end of the process. The final provision of Bill 14 amends the Referendum Act. So after going through everything, and again, I think it's a pressure release exercise, and it's rigged. So I think 70% plus, I think more than 70% of Albertans want independence, regardless of whether that brings short and medium-term pain. The long-term gain is worth it in most people's eyes. It won't take long before the billions made in Alberta staying in Alberta turns that tide. Most people think that, and I think it's north of 70%. But the elections are rigged, and they're going to have all sorts of op-eds. Think Brexit. Just like Brexit. They will make fun of people who say Alberta separatism is a good idea. They will make up all sorts of arguments that have no weight or are not logically sound, and they will push these arguments as the only thing that's correct, and anybody who says anything else is an idiot, and so on and so forth. And in doing that, they will make the Alberta separatism a hot button issue, and they will claim victory right up until they lose. And if they lose, they'll just nullify it, like they wish they could do with Brexit. Okay, and now they're nullifying it ad hoc. Keir Starmer's nullifying it ad hoc with all sorts of kowtowing to the EU anyway. So over a long enough period of time, these people worm their way back in. But I still feel like we will crush them. I still feel like they will lose like the mullahs in Iran. Fingers crossed that works. But we'll see. We'll see, right? Power can never stay entrenched forever. It just doesn't work that way. Here is Alberta Prosperity Project, and they're talking about the same thing. The National Post, the same thing. The attacks on the people who want separation are intensifying. That's what I'm saying. The National Post calls our outreach, the Alberta Prosperity Project outreach, treason, nonsense. It's standard practice for independence movements worldwide seeking fair negotiations and recognition. Ottawa itself says it's legal as per the article. History is full of examples where groups sent delegations abroad for support, and then they're listed. So the shade being thrown at them for daring to treat with the United States about what happens when this whole thing moves forward, it's all being used as ammunition. And that's interesting. We got to talk about Trump really quickly and Satanism, and then we're done, and the UK too. Here is posted by the White House. I had a job when I was like, 19, 20. And when I was in college, I had a different job, but both made enough money that I could pay my rent, and I had like a little bit of money left over. And so with the money left over, I bought a DVD player and a surround sound system, and I already had a TV, but it was a Commodore 64 monitor. But I had a DVD player and a surround sound system, and I bought Gladiator on DVD. It was my favorite movie. I would watch it. It was amazing. Like, in the early 2000s, that movie was amazing. It was amazing. It's still really good. And so I would watch Gladiator. And so this is cool because this is what Trump posted, the White House posted. And I don't know, there's all sorts of interesting communications that are bouncing around talking about, go orders and all sorts of things like that. This is just one, and we'll see. We'll see. Here's what the White House posted.
Hold the line. Stay with me. Brothers, what we do in life echoes in eternity.
It says President Trump preparing his team for 2026.
Strengthen on, strengthen on. At my signal, unleash hell.
And we'll leave it there. It's a montage of Trump walking around with all sorts of different military things. But the interesting point is, at my signal, unleash hell, right? Trump preparing his team for 2026, at my signal, unleash hell. Are we going to see arrests? Are we going to see any kind of movement? Are we going to see big name arrests? People are interested. Brian says the year of positioning and preparation in the hostile takeover of the executive branch and thereby the U.S. military is about to pay off. Trump has sufficient control. The battle of our age can now begin. The destruction of organized crime nation, the launch of the great remigration, the exposure of the great election theft of 2020, the destruction of the end of the Fed, the establishment of a new American golden age. The destruction and the end of the Fed, with silver surging the way it is and potentially breaking banks the way it is that plausible? It seems more plausible now with the silver thing than it felt when they were talking about this in the 20-teens. The exposure of the great election theft of 2020 seems plausible. Trump's been talking about that. Launch of great remigration, again, plausible. Trump's been talking about that. The destruction of organized crime, Minnesota, plausible. And has this whole last year been about moving pieces into place so you can really put the hammer down? We'll see. Like, I genuinely, it's plausible. I hope so. Fingers crossed. But we have to wait and see. Here, Johnny Maga says, new hat, Trump 2028. I think this is going to happen. Why do I think it's going to happen? A feeling in my gut. I feel like it's going to happen. If anybody could do it, Trump said it a couple of times. If anybody could do it, Trump could do it. And again, there are issues with Trump. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not necessarily celebrating, but who's better? Biden, Newsom, Kamala Harris, Netanyahu? Just bring in Netanyahu directly. Okay, that's better. But honestly, I think that this Trump 2028 is going to happen, whether you like it or not. And so we'll see. And will he keep the same VP? I don't know. We'll see. We Hate Cops says the cops work with the government to enforce systems that protect capitalism and the establishment, and in turn slowly erode the freedoms and joy that life should bring. We should all be worried about the rules the cops will hit us with in 2026 and figure out how to fight them. Metropolitan Police says Primrose Hill will be closed on New Year's Eve this year. There will be fencing, security, and a police presence to prevent access. If you'd planned to head there to get a view of the Central London fireworks, don't. So there you go. It's super interesting when the police start shutting down basic access to, like, sky. It's in the sky, right? No. If you haven't paid, you have to put on these blackout glasses that prevent you from seeing the fireworks. You're welcome, right? Security. We don't want any fraud here, right, you citizen. Is this true? So hold on, I'll show you the Boucle thing first. It's 7 minutes long.
In the West.
7 minutes long. And Tucker Carlson is talking about how he's never heard any world leader say so plainly what Boucle says here, talking about Satanism, just really openly and matter-of-factly. Here we go.
MS-13 is one of the major gangs.
And they are satanic also.
That was my question. So very
I'm
little.
sorry.
No, but I would hope you will explain it, because very little has been written in the West about this.
They're satanic, yes.
But actually, literally, can you explain?
Well, they didn't start as a satanic organization. They MS-13 started in Los Angeles, in the U.S.
He gives the history of MS-13, and then he talks about a gang member who was sent to a house to kill the daughter of somebody. It was a baby. And he did it because that's what he was told to do. But then he left the gang after that and he went to jail. And the reason that he had to kill the baby was because the master, or the beast, or whatever he says, I can't remember, but the implication is the boss of the Satanists asked for a baby. And so he had to go kill a baby. And he's like, these people are crazy. Yes, the drug dealer, gang member hitman was like, whoa, hold on a second. This is a bit far. And so he did his job, because if he didn't, he would be killed, I guess. And he got out of the gang. But Boucle says it's Satanism. They worship Satan. It's Satanism. Okay. And with that in context, right? And again, it's like an 8-minute clip, so you have to go watch it yourself. It's interesting, and it's no worse than my the Gladiator story. So it's worth the watch. Here is a woman, and I have not verified this. It seems plausible that this woman is telling the truth. Other people are asking, is this true, everybody? But it certainly seems plausible. And so here is this woman talking about the Satanists in Minnesota honoring Tim Walz.
At the Minnesota State Capitol, and I'm here to double check on what everybody's been talking about on social media, is this plaque in honor of our governor, Tim Walz, and it is from people that are supportive of his efforts, and there it is, right here in the East Hall, lower level. It reads, the Democratic Coalition of Satan Worshippers thanks Governor Tim Walz for not standing in the way of spreading Satanism in the state capitol building. Satan has a special place for you. And that's what it says.
Yikes, right? Yikes. If I'm ever in a position of leadership and somebody comes in and says, hey, we'd love to give you this plaque, and they show me that, man, it's time to like re-examine my priorities. Oh, great. Where's the red button? Where's the red button? Get them out of here. Yeah, I don't know. Satanism. Oof. I have a friend who will continually tell me the tenets of Satanism. And he's like, does this sound like a bad thing? And I was like, well, yes, because it's Satanism. And he's like, no, but read them. I was like, yeah, no, I get it. It's Satanism. You can't. I was like, no. Anyway, that's enough out of me. I've got pita to go make. It seems like I honestly think that we are entering a different phase. It seems like there's indications we're entering a different phase. This Minnesota fraud expose seems like a different phase. In Canada, we're stuck in arrested development. Carney keeps telling us that things are great when everybody can see that things are not great. And so that's interesting to me. There's still relatively inexpensive food, and I understand food is very expensive relative to how much it cost in 2015. Like, food is expensive now compared to that. Yes, it's expensive for the amount of money we make. Yes, but it's still plentiful and available, right? When I go to the grocery store, there's still a lot of food around. It's not like there's 6 loaves of bread, and if you don't get there before noon, the bread's gone, right? Like, that's what I'm saying. There's still lots and lots of food, and it's relatively cheap. It's not 80% of your salary. And so they have an incentive to maintain that structure, that balance. If that balance fails, then they lose power. And so, but I think with the silver stuff, I think with the banks being under the pressure that they're under, I think that things are changing and may change quickly. So I don't know. We just have to wait and see. So that's enough of me. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for your support.